Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Album of Record podcast. I'm Craig Lindell, joined as always by Andrew Schnitke. How is it going, Andrew?
Going well. Very happy to be here, as always. Excited for today's topic.
Me too. I'm excited for today's topic as well. But as usual, I have a topic before the topic, and I didn't tell you what it is. I think that I finally reached my post-COVID concert ticket buying max. I think I'm kind of done for a little bit. And the reason why I know I'm done, I had some conflicts, I had some reasons, I had some excuses not to go to a show last week, and I didn't go to the show. And it leads me to believe that maybe I should take a little bit of a break from buying concert tickets. I didn't go see Los Campesinos, which is a band that I absolutely love.
That one's crazy to me that you didn't go to that
But
one.
you know, my wife was out of town and I had my 12-year-old and I was going to drag him to the show with me, and he would have had fun once we got there, but he wasn't excited about it. And I didn't want to leave him by himself to go to the show. So I had lots of built-in excuses, but if I've made shows like that happen in previous moments of my life, at least for part of the show. And I absolutely love that band and I love their new material. I love their catalog material. Their shows are like a party. They're one of the most fun bands in the world. They're from, not Wales, they're from Scotland. They don't come here a lot. And so for me to pass on that show doesn't say anything about them, but it says a whole lot about me and the number of shows that I've gone to since kind of things got more back to normal in the post-COVID world. And by the way, this is, I hate to, people need to know this about me. This isn't like a humble brag thing, but I can buy $25-$30 concert tickets whenever I feel like without like thinking twice about it. I'm not like taking private jets level of rich, but I can buy a $25 concert ticket whenever I feel like it without too much pain. And so it's not about cost. It's just about, I don't want to buy the tickets and then feel bad about not wanting to go to the show and then not going to the show.
Yeah, if you just don't buy the ticket, then it's just you're not it's like you're not actively not going, you're passively not going, which is a huge difference. But we talked about when we talked about a little bit about the ticket sales thing, I think we kind of alluded to the fact that it does seem like that post-COVID bubble is happening for a lot of people, and for some people it is economic, for some people that, as inflation goes up, grocery prices are up, they're just looking to cut places and they say, oh, hey, concerts may be a place that's just an obvious place to cut. But I do think it's also just a volume thing for certain people as well, that you hit critical mass of how many shows you can go to in a year. And, I think after lockdowns, we were very much in a let's do everything mindset, like just if you get an opportunity to do something, you need to do it. Like that was sort of a just natural reaction to the lockdowns. And that probably is starting to wane now. It's been long enough. Like I barely remember what lockout felt like anymore. Like it sort of seems like such a long time ago. So I think that's probably out of our system. And
well, there was pent up demand and pent up supply, because it feels like the bands that were locked out of touring kind of over toured the last 2 years and were rewarded for doing so because people went to the shows.
Yeah. The real question is are you going to buy a ticket to Cloud Nothings in October, even though you just saw them a couple weeks ago?
And that's going to be a month after.
That feels like a test, a real test of where you're at.
And that's a month after my Boston trip to see Pearl Jam twice in 3 days, plus Manchester Orchestra.
Yeah.
And I have zero regrets about that. That's a real special trip.
Yeah.
I've booked travel and hotels for that one, so that's definitely happening. But do I want to book something like essentially just under a month after that in October? And I love Cloud Nothings. I love it's Here Nowhere Else.
Nowhere Else. Yeah,
Love that record.
It's my favorite Cloud Nothings album. So they're actually playing Columbus this time. So I think I'll probably
Maybe
go
I'll
check
skip
them out.
Cleveland. I'll come down to
But
Columbus.
yeah, there you go. But yeah,
turn it into a trip.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, I was just kind of like, it's just funny because I know there's a version of you that would have been like, I'm just buying a ticket no matter what.
Yeah.
And then I think even that your mindset, and especially for a band like Cloud Nothings, that I know if you have an opportunity to go under normal circumstances, you would go. And like we said, you literally just saw them. What was that? 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
Yeah. When
And
Cloud
so
Nothings is also one of those bands where I'm really spoiled because they're, whenever he's here, he visits his mom.
Yeah.
So he plays here on every tour. I've probably seen Cloud Nothings as many, or I'm on pace to see them more than any other band, probably, just because there's so much opportunity.
Yeah. I just wish they would always play Columbus when they're making that swing, but they don't. They don't always play Columbus.
Well, they never skip Cleveland. So, sometimes Columbus might not work out in the geography.
It's probably because it's an extra day he could spend with his mom. Like if you play Columbus, that's a day away that you can't spend at home. So
and running on the towpath, he's running
that's right,
tens of miles a day. So
yep, running through the campus.
Yeah. So the real topic for today, you and I got somehow or another in our offline conversations, we were talking about the live album, and I know okay.
This is how we got on the conversation. This new live album right here.
Tell everybody who's listening.
This is Royal Headache. This is a new live album they just put out called Live in America. Royal Headache, they're a punk band from Australia that no longer exists. The band, the continent still exists, but
we're not breaking that kind of news.
Yeah, but I was remarking, like, it was awesome to hear this. This was an ultimate, like, flash in the pan band, like, that got really successful, really successful being relative, like, in the indie blog scene. They were huge, like, they were wildly popular amongst sort of the critical indie rock audiences. Their singer Shogun, he had just the most insane voice. I mean, just a ridiculous singer. And they put out this live album, and I was like, man, it was really fun to hear how how his voice sounded live, that it actually translates quite well. He is able to reproduce that sound live. And then I was saying, but the thing is I was like, what's crazy is you don't hear a lot of bands do that today. That we don't get a ton of the produced live album with a title on it, like a standalone live album. You don't see it that much these days. And from there, it spurned a conversation of us talking about live albums. And we're like, well, this should be a podcast episode. So thank you, Royal Headache, not only for putting out the phenomenal live album. And seriously, guys, I cannot recommend enough checking this live album out. But and don't be thrown off too by me saying they're a punk band. This is not a screamo punk band. This is a very accessible, like, they are punk in ethic, in aesthetic, in spirit, but like musically, like the guitars are kind of more jangly than edgy. And Shogun's vocals, I mean, he's not screaming, he is singing, and he is singing his ass off the entire time. So, but anyways, they not only put out a great live album, they gave us a fun topic for us to talk about today.
Yeah, and the live album is a very important concept in the history of rock and roll. I mean, even going back to you and I weren't really alive for it, but Frampton Comes Alive was one of the biggest albums maybe of all time.
Yeah.
Certainly his biggest record as an artist. And yeah, it was the live version.
Whenever you would see, like, a Rolling Stone list of the greatest albums when we were growing up, or like a list of even the best selling albums, it would always be like way up there would be Frampton Comes Alive, which I, to this day, have never actually listened to, but I've certainly heard songs from it. I've seen YouTube videos of it.
Classic rock radio.
Yeah. So I've heard stuff from it, but I've never actually just sat down and listened to it from start to finish. But yeah, that, I mean, you're right. That was everywhere when we were young.
It was released January 1976, 3 years before you and I were born.
Yep.
And it debuted at 191. It reached number one on the Billboard 200 in April 76, spending a total of 10 non-consecutive weeks in the top spot through October. It was the best-selling album of 1976 and sold over 8 million copies in the United States alone.
Yeah. I mean, you know, if you think about it today, I'm trying to think of the last time like a live album made waves. Like if Taylor Swift puts out a Eras Tour live album, that will shatter.
Funny that you mentioned that.
Oh, okay.
She released that concert video in the box office. Now it's on Disney Plus.
Right. And it's a huge success. And so it feels inevitable that at some point a live album version will be out, but I don't know. Maybe she doesn't have to do that because everybody just watches it on Disney Plus. I don't know, but you know, outside of that phenomenon, like I really don't know the last time a live album was like hitting the charts. And
well, let me fulfill my role of reading stats.
Yes.
The Taylor Swift The Eras Tour film was released in October of 23. It amassed 37 million on its first day and over 100 million in total global sales. It became the highest grossing concert film of all time, earning $267.1 million in its limited theatrical run.
Jeez.
And then she sold it to Disney Plus. I think she probably sold it for $1 million, maybe more. Who knows?
I mean, people, yeah.
Perhaps more than that.
$1 million. It is crazy. Like people talk about being able to just print money. Like literally, Taylor Swift prints money. If she wants money, she just has to put something out, and she gets money. Like that's
dude. And not only that, can you guess how long that movie is?
I would guess probably like 90 minutes.
169 minutes.
Woo! That's meaty. That is wow. Okay. I mean, I guess I knew that, like, you know, she plays a lot of songs on these shows, but I just assumed they would pare it down for a theatrical release. But no, good for her. I actually like that. I appreciate that. That's no compromise. Like, this is what the show is. We're gonna put the whole show out. That's very cool to me.
I watched a part of it with my wife at a very high volume one day, and it was really watchable, really entertaining as a movie. I got to be honest.
Yeah. Did she make any errors, as Dave Grohl would say?
Let's talk about that.
Why not? It's relevant to this conversation.
Yeah. So Dave Grohl, he and Taylor Swift, the Foo Fighters and Taylor Swift were both playing London kind of over the course of a weekend, maybe 3-4 days. And Dave Grohl, who is just a clown, always making jokes on stage, he made a joke that, you know, not only do the Foo Fighters play, they call theirs the Errors Tour, because they make lots of errors because they play live. And he was like kind of tongue in cheek, kind of going, whoa, did I really just say that? And then the Taylor Swift, the Swifties got crazy online. It drew lots of headlines over the last week. So like when you saw that, were you like, whoa, or were you just kind of laughing?
No, I laughed because I know Dave Grohl, like not personally, obviously, but like I followed Dave Grohl for a very long time, and I know that he doesn't have a serious bone in his body. Like he is the ultimate. He is always a smartass about everything. He's going to be sarcastic. He's going to, you know, poke the holes in things and, you know, punch needles and things and pour salt into wounds. Like that's Dave Grohl. That's his personality. And I love that about Dave. He's always seems like a really fun guy. He's been a great interview. He's a fun stage presence. But I also understand that a lot of Taylor Swift fans don't have that context of who Dave Grohl actually is. And I said, I can see both sides of it. I can understand why Taylor Swift fans are sensitive to this anyways, because it is a stigma about pop music in general. It's highly choreographed. There's not much improv, so, and there's been historically, a lot of lip syncing and, instruments that may not actually be plugged into the PA at
Backing
all.
tracks.
Yeah. And so it's been it's a sensitive issue, and it's always been a point of pride for Taylor Swift fans that, Taylor writes a lot of the songs herself. She plays all the instruments herself. She has been probably the most musical pop star of our lives. Like, I can't think of another pop. I mean, like maybe Prince, I guess, if you consider Prince a pop star, then I
do.
Then obviously Prince is in that conversation and probably surpasses Taylor Swift in that regard. But my point is, I understand why they're sensitive to it, but I also I can understand why they would be mad at Dave Grohl. But to me, it was all just funny, because I'm like, this is just classic Dave Grohl. This is Dave being Dave. And to me, it was just funny.
Yeah, I agree with that. So can you remember kind of where the first major live album that impacted your life? And I'm not talking about I'm not talking about like a bootleg per se,
right?
Because if you want to start talking about bootlegs, I could talk about those. But I think more like the official release studio live album.
I know what mine is for sure, and I told you I grabbed some props, and I can't believe I forgot this one, because I do own it on vinyl. That's Van Halen live right here, right now. To this day,
I forgot about that one.
One of my absolute favorite. Maybe it is my favorite live album ever. I don't know, but like, it means a lot to me. I wish I could show you. Like the CD, I don't know if you ever owned it. It came in a cardboard digipack. It's all, mine is just beat to hell because I listened to it so much. But
Statue of Jesus on the front lawn.
Yeah, after the tornado had gone through, yeah, and to me, it's a great album. People, I don't care too much about the Sammy Hagar conversation. I like David Lee Roth. I like Sammy Hagar. I never really cared too much. I like albums and songs from both singers with Van Halen, but
see, and I don't. I like Van Hagar.
Wow, so there you go. But so for me, like, I didn't ever like. I know some people don't like the live album because it's not David Lee Roth, but I thought Sammy brought it on that live album. I mean, to me, he's great on it. And so I love that one. That's the one that I remember. Probably, I mean, I'm trying to think if there were even ones I really remember listening to before that, but I just remember that one just really blowing me away. What about you?
I think the first one that really impacted me, I mean, I could bring up there was a Jackson 5 and Michael Jackson live record that I listened to like crazy as a preteen. And the versions of those songs and hearing the crowd lose their mind over the Jacksons was definitely a huge impact on me. But I think the first record that I like really fell in love with and listened to nonstop, and it's kind of eye rolly now maybe, but live at Red Rocks, Dave Matthews Band, that album took over the culture for teenagers when that one came out.
Oh, that's a great one. Dave actually has quite a few. I mean, in addition to the bootlegs, but he has several live albums that are really good. That's a good call right there. Wait, what year did you say that came out?
95.
Wow, I almost would have thought it was earlier than that, but yeah, that.
I mean, that was probably Dave Matthews at the peak of their powers, to steal a phrase from Bill Simmons.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, but yeah, 90. Well, actually,
and they closed that record with All Along the Watchtower.
What year did Crash come out though? Because Crash is after that, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right. That's 96.
I feel like Crash is really where they were at the peak of their powers, but
maybe.
But yeah, anyways, I digress. What was the he had an acoustic one with Tim Reynolds too. That album's awesome as well.
It is.
Was that Live at Luther? Is that what it's called? I think
Yep, live at
Live at
Luther
Luther.
College or something.
Yeah. That one's awesome too. I mean, just ridiculous guitar playing. Tim Reynolds was just an insane guitarist. Very, very cool album.
Well, and we're jumping around, of course, but in that
Yeah.
same style, totally different artist, totally different performance, but in that same style, Jay Mascis, Martin and Me, performing kind of the greatest Dinosaur Jr. songs, just him and one other guitarist, and
Yeah, very
you know,
stripped down. Very
typical
cool.
sloppy Dino Jr.
Yeah,
But just excellent.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, one that I've really loved still to this day is Aerosmith, A Little South of Sanity. That like I think we talked about this kind of like with big ones, like, if you just want to capture like a certain era of Aerosmith, like Big Ones is a really good place to start. But if you want a live version of that, to me, is a Little South of Sanity hits all of those things, because I think that was the Get a Grip tour that was recorded on, I'm pretty sure. So you're getting a heavy dose of Get a Grip songs, a lot of Pump, Permanent Vacation. You do get Dream On and Walk This Way, but it's primarily that like that Big Ones era of Aerosmith, but performed live. And I think the recording sounds great on that one. I think that's just a really well made, well produced live album.
When Aerosmith mostly was a band kind of before us. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
they hit big kind of in our teenage years too.
No, they had a
Um,
huge peak before we were even born in the
yeah.
70s.
And then on top of it, I think I've brought this one up before, but I really became a believer in Aerosmith Live. I think it was an MTV Movie Awards where they came out and did Dream On with Michael Kamen in the orchestra.
Yeah.
And it was like, I get chills just talking about it right now, thinking about that performance and the way the band interplays with the orchestra and Steven Tyler's vocals with all that delay or reverb on his vocals, and just how great he sounds,
Yeah.
somewhere between a scream and a falsetto hitting those high notes and Dream On.
Yeah.
It seems impossible that somebody should be able to do that live, and Steven Tyler did.
Yeah, back when he could pull that off. And if you
And no shame, man. How many people in their 70s should be able to sing like
for
that?
sure. It's a natural part of life, but it definitely doesn't sound the same over the last 20 years as it did prior to that. But
Well, we talk about Maynard all the time because Maynard from Tool says that he can't really perform his old songs the way he used to, and that's a band that, they kind of broke with a couple of live tracks on their first EP, and they really haven't done any live records.
Not really. They did have some live stuff on that box set they did that had some of the covers. I'm drawing a blank on what that was called. But they had that. It was like a box set, and there was some live
the
stuff
Zeppelin
on there.
cover on there, right?
No Quarter. Yeah.
No Quarter.
So they've intermittently put out some live stuff. I really wished that they would have put out maybe not a live album. I mean, I'd love a live album, but I wish they would have put out a DVD of their 10,000 Days tour, because I've mentioned this, I think, before on the podcast, but certainly I've told this to you before, that for me, I didn't care much about 10,000 Days when it came out. I was, I don't know. I just didn't know how much I really liked that album, but seeing them perform it live just made it click with me in a way. Like I understood. It was just like this, oh my God, I get it now moment, like almost like a pseudo religious type experience. Like I see the light, I get it. And so now I listen to 10,000 Days, that's the studio album, all the time, because it's just resonated with me, and it takes me back to that moment. So I kind of wish that they would have done something live with that tour, because it was a great performance. But did you see him on that tour?
I don't think so.
They had the stage set was really interesting too, because there were no amps or anything there was no equipment on the stage, and it was all white. And then they had like these trees, and it was like really sparse, and it just added this ambiance and this mood to those songs that are heavy, very heavy songs to begin with. And it just gave them a little bit of extra weight. That was a great, it was a very expensive tour, but I actually don't regret that one.
It's one of the surprising things too, especially a visual band like that with 4K cameras, and even, if there was ever an implementation of VR, live concerts would probably be a really good one. Some kind of a camera angle or camera placement that brought you into the venue, like somewhere just in front of the soundboard.
Oh yeah.
So you could kind of look around at the audience and
you literally
stage
just
setup.
Pick your seat. Where do you want to sit? And get a different experience every time, for sure.
And I've brought this up before with Pearl Jam too, because they do the quote unquote bootlegs where they record every show. But at what point, especially as they kind of pare down the number of dates they play, and not just Pearl Jam, any band, but on a random Friday, I would pay $20 or $30 to pay-per-view myself into the 10th row and just watch the show. But bands just don't seem to do that.
I was gonna make a joke that the people playing the drinking game were getting thirsty, that we haven't mentioned Pearl Jam yet. So you guys can thank Craig. So you guys can drink for that first Pearl Jam mention. But I was gonna ask you, and I want to answer some of your questions. I want to talk a little bit about Pearl Jam. I even have just a couple examples of, in addition to the live bootlegs, Pearl Jam has done, I have Live on Two Legs, and then Give Way.
Was Live on Two Legs the one they did the DVD as well?
So they didn't do a DVD for it. They did.
Which one did they do the DVD?
Touring Band 2000 they did that. They've done a Live in New York one from Madison Square Garden. Then they did the Italy one. I'm going to forget what the name of that one is. Touring
Band 2000 was the one that I was thinking of. And it's hard to watch now because it's a standard definition.
Yeah, it is. It looks so unbelievably dated. It's wild.
Yeah.
But my question for you was going to be, do you think we are going to get a DVD of this current Pearl Jam tour, of the Dark Matter tour?
I certainly think so.
I think so too. I think with them doing all this production for this tour, I think we're going to be getting some kind of a DVD, whether it'll be another touring band style where it's a compilation, or if it'll be just a single show that they'll pick whichever show they think is the best. I don't know. And then my question after that is, do you think they'll do a live album for it? So they have done Live on Two Legs, Live on 10 Legs, Give Way. They did Live at Easy Street, the EP.
They did Chicago, Wrigley.
Let's Play 2.
Let's Play 2, sorry.
They did that one. They did Benaroya Hall, the stripped down set they did there. So they're not afraid, in addition to their bootlegs, to also put out proper live albums. They've done a lot of them. So I wouldn't.
Which also brings me to the YouTube angle too, because the fan shot compilations that people put together for Pearl Jam shows are unbelievable.
Yeah,
and a lot of that's happening these days too.
And we talked about this also as previously on the podcast, which I need to just stop doing that. I'm always having it like in my mind that people have listened to every minute of every episode. And so I'm like, I'm repeating myself. But when in reality, I'm sure not everybody has heard me already talk about this. But so Rob Sheridan, who's doing Pearl Jam's production on this tour, also did Nine Inch Nails stage set on their Lights in the Sky tour. And they had recorded all of those for what was going to be a DVD, but it fell through for whatever reason. And so Trent just dumped all the raw files from 2 or 3 shows. I don't remember. But anyways, so fans just took that raw data, mixed it, cut it up, and put out an actual live DVD that you can see on YouTube. If you search for Nine Inch Nails, you'll find it pretty easily, Lights in the Sky. And it's really well done. Now it's not fan recorded. The band recorded it, but the fans are the ones who cut it all up. And it's just cool to see that interaction. And when you see it from the perspective of a fan, it does sort of almost take you more into the moment. There's almost more immersion there because you're seeing it from the perspective of the fan, and you're seeing what the fan wants to see as opposed to what the band wants you to see, which is not to invalidate the band's perspective on this, obviously, but it is different from a band. When a band puts out any kind of live album, they clean up what certain things that they don't want you to hear. They're going to clean up, they're going to put it out the way they want it to see and the way they want to represent themselves. Whereas if a fan does the cut, you're going to get probably more likely to have the mistakes, because oftentimes as fans, that's what we like. Those are the moments that make a show unique or almost special sometimes. So,
or like if the lead singer gives a speech in between songs that doesn't quite hit, it's going to get cut out before the DVD.
That's right.
And the other one is the Deftones community is really good about putting together these videos, but for whatever reason, they get taken down almost instantaneously.
Yeah.
And I feel like somebody needs to work with Deftones management so that they could be released on the official channel and live there, because they're so watchable.
You remember when Major League Baseball was doing that for a while? They were like striking down anybody who would dare to share highlights. It's like, what are you guys doing? Like, social media is about sharing. You got people who want to share exciting things about your sport. What are you protecting here? So yeah, I kind of want to say the same thing to Deftones. I don't know how many times in the last year you have sent me a link to something saying, "Hey, great performance by Deftones." And by the time I click on it, it's already taken down. And I'm like, well,
it's already gone.
Yeah, so you gotta be quick.
I was lucky
those.
enough. I had one loaded in memory, and I got to finish it before the takedown came. So I'm kind of going back through some of the other really influential live records, other than Unplugged, because we already talked about Unplugged. That one you should go find on the Unplugged episode. But Counting Crows had a double across a wire, where the one was kind of like plugged and the second album was more their like stripped down acoustic version.
Can I tell a story about that?
In a second.
Okay.
So that was Counting Crows before they had completely and utterly bastardized their live sets, and their songs still sounded somewhat like they were supposed to sound.
Somewhat.
I would argue that Counting Crows only got worse and worse and worse live, and that's as a fan, somebody who loves the band. But it got to a certain point where I told my friends I would rather see a Counting Crows cover band than actual Counting Crows at this point,
because the cover band will actually play Counting Crows songs. I
could actually sing along with the cover band.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
So I mentioned this already, Pearl Jam's Giveaway live album. This was originally meant to be a giveaway with, I don't remember if it was Yield or if it was with the Single Video Theory, the DVD. But anyways, if you went to Best Buy and you bought it, this was the giveaway that you were supposed to get, was this live album giveaway. And I remember going to Best Buy, super excited. Yeah, I think it was for Single Video Theory. I was super excited to get my hands on that, but I was also like really excited about getting this Pearl Jam live album. Well, once we got to Best Buy, they told us that somebody with either the label or the band's management basically sent them a cease and desist letter and said, "Hey, this isn't authorized. You can't be giving this away." And so as a result, though, you had lots of disappointed people in Best Buy. They allowed us to pick out any CD we wanted for free to go with it. And so I was in the mindset, I was like, well, I want a live album. Like I came here to get a live album. So I was looking around and that Counting Crows live album was there. And that's what I got. And I don't know if I would have bought that had this not happened, but because I did, I got it. And I really do love it. But I already remember remarking to my friend as we listened to it on the way home, I'm like, he's really singing really weird vocal melodies on a lot of these songs. Like, why does he keep trying to change up the vocal melodies all the time? And to your point, he's only gotten worse at it. The band has become worse for it live for sure. Like they play, like there are some versions out there of songs that are just barely recognizable to the originals, and it's just trying too hard. You don't have to do that. You wrote really great songs, like just let them be
Great vocal melodies.
Yeah,
and people want to sing along. Like if you want to mess around in the verses a little bit, I understand it, but you got to keep the choruses kind of similar. Or there are a lot of songs that I think have developed live and have become better live, but they're still sung consistently so that the crowd can get used to the new version and still sing along.
Yeah.
But Counting Crows, it feels like a different version almost every night, to the detriment of the material. And I know the hardcore fans will say, no, I like it this way and I want it this way, and you just don't get it if you criticize it. And okay, I don't get it.
Maybe I don't.
Yeah, I think a lot of us don't get it. And I think there's something to be said for staying at least a little bit true to the material.
Yeah.
Before I keep going, are there any others that really pop out that you think we should talk about, that just, not only did you buy them, but they kind of became your favorite records?
Yeah, I think a big one for me is definitely Metallica's S&M, the one they did with the San Francisco Symphony. That one, I don't know.
The ultimate cheat code, by the way. Always hire a symphony orchestra to play along with.
Yeah. I don't know if I would say like that to this day. It's like my definitive way of listening to Metallica. It's definitely not. But that live album was really cool when it came out. I had not really heard anything like it before in terms of a metal band, allowing their songs to be transformed into this other thing through the symphony orchestra. But they still held true. Like you would immediately recognize all of these songs for what they are. It's not that, but it's just an entirely different perspective on a lot of these songs. And so I really enjoyed that one. That one was also I don't know if it was a DVD or if it was just like a TV special, but I remember watching the performance on MTV as well. That one was really cool.
So at some point in the early 2000s, I became a very big fan of Amy Mann. And she released a live record live at St. Anne's Warehouse. And not only are those like my favorite versions of some of her biggest hits, like Deathly and what was the movie? I always forget the name of the movie that she did 3 or 4 songs for. It'll come to me. But in addition to those songs,
Magnolia, right? Was it Magnolia?
Magnolia.
I think it was Magnolia.
Yeah, it was. In addition to those songs, she also she did a cover of Coldplay's The Scientist, and for my money, that is now the version. If I ever want to listen to that song, I do like the Coldplay version as well, but her version of that song is just like the version for me now. The vocal melody is a little bit different. She has one of her backup singers sing the Coldplay vocal melody, and then she hits more like a harmony note, and then there are a couple extra little flourishes in the phrasings and different things. Definitely should look that one up. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, nice. I don't know if this was on your list of ones you were going to talk about, but I also did want to talk about Deafheaven's 10 Years Gone. And this one's a little bit different. So
it's a personal one for you and me because we were supposed to see that concert live.
Yeah, I have a prop for this one too. This is for people watching. This is Deafheaven's 10 Years Gone. So this was a tour that they were supposed to be doing in 2020, spring of 2020. And they had this set list rehearsed, and it was really to celebrate the first 10 years of them being a band. So it was going to have a couple songs from Road to Judah, Sunbather, oh my God. This is the problem of doing a podcast. You forget things.
New Bermuda. Ordinary Corrupt Human Love.
Yeah, and I think that was the last one. And but then it also had the Adult Swim song they did too. The Kettle something.
From the Kettle onto the Coil.
Yeah. And so Craig and I had tickets to go see them. Greet Death was supposed to open for them, which we were very excited about.
Very excited.
And then as things started to shut down, the concert was still on. And I remember us even having the discussion, like, do we, if it's open, like, if they're doing this show, do we still go? Like, how comfortable are you going? Like, there's going to be other people there. We're going to be around people. Can we be around people? You know, the conversations everybody was having in 2020. Well, naturally, of course, the show got canceled. And so we missed out on that tour. Well, Deafheaven, they, rely on touring for money. They needed to make some money. So they actually went into a studio and performed this set live. So they played the exact set list they were going to play on the tour. But they performed it live in the studio, recorded it, and put it out on vinyl and sold it to the fans. And so I didn't even have a record player at the time, and I still bought it because I just felt obligated to support them in some way. But I will say, I kind of wish bands would do this more. And we talked about this a little bit, even with like the Incubus, who just put out a remake of Morning View. So
before you get there, by the way, it was the show was supposed to be on April 8th, 2020.
There you go. Yep. So that right as the world was completely shutting down.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine. But so Incubus just put out a redux of Morning View, in which they went into a studio and just re-recorded the album as they feel it today, and it's very. It
sounds
good.
very live,
it's very,
by the way.
but it has a live quality to it. And I was thinking, I was like, man, I wish more bands would do that. But I also kind of wish bands wouldn't even be afraid to do what Deafheaven did with 10 Years Gone. Put a set together, go in the studio, and just run the tape and play it live and see how it sounds. Because you might be surprised how good that kind of a live album can be. And I will contend that the version of Pecan Tree on 10 Years Gone is better than the studio version. Do
you remember my weird feedback from listening to that record?
I don't.
So I had seen Deafheaven 2, maybe 3 times when that album came out. And every time I saw Deafheaven, Carrie McCoy was on the right side of the stage from the audience perspective. Is that stage left?
I call that stage right, but I don't.
Stage right. He was on the right side as an audience member.
Yeah.
And when he listened to the record, he was on the left side of my ears. And so it was like not a big deal, but it was something I absolutely noticed where I was like, no, he's on the wrong side. He's supposed to be over there because every time I've seen him, he's been over there.
Yeah. So just a unique way of hearing
when you're mixing a record, you tend to put the lead guitarist or the main guitarist on the left. So the studio mix just felt odd to me.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. And that's what I'm saying. There's just, you hear these nuances in these recordings when you do it. So do I consider 10 Years Gone a traditional live album? Maybe not, but it is a live album. They went and played this live. It's
great.
And it's phenomenal. I absolutely love it. But yeah, that's probably the I'm trying to think. I don't know if I can think of any others off the top of my head. We
I got the one that you're not thinking of.
All right, good.
Brutus.
Oh, the one I always forget about. Oh,
which we love.
yes.
So tell
Live
everybody
in,
about Brutus.
yeah. So Brutus, they are from Sweden,
They're
Denmark,
Scandinavian. Belgian.
Belgium. God, I should have known that too. They're a three-piece band.
A trio that sounds like a 7-piece.
That's correct. That's exactly what I was going to say. You would never believe, listening to this band live or on record, that this is a three-piece band. It makes no sense. Stephanie, the lead singer, she's also the drummer, and she does the lead vocals, which is
also
just crazy,
unbelievable.
She's a really, really good drummer, and she's a phenomenal singer.
Yeah, this isn't the White Stripes.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's just a guitarist and a bass player, and they play I don't even know, like, if I were to say what genre the music is, like
hard rock.
It's definitely hard rock. Huge influences probably from like Refused, certainly Deftones element. I mean, Stephanie's wearing a Deftones shirt almost every picture you see. So there's some heavier, aggressive influences in it, but they write these songs that can just be, they can go from blistering fast to just beautiful, soaring, atmospheric sounds. I mean, just a phenomenal band. And they put out a live album. That was probably around COVID time too, wasn't it? I feel like this might have been a COVID thing as well for them. And it's just it
was live in Ghent, and it was released in 2020.
Yeah, and it's just remarkable. I mean, it's just it's good on its own merit, but when you especially consider, like we said, the fact that this is a 3-piece band that can sound this huge live is just awesome. I mean, they're just a phenomenal live album.
Well, and like, not is it remarkable to have a female drummer in 2024? Not really, but the fact that she is a drummer, which is still a little bit not a novelty, but it's rare.
Yep.
And she can sing the way she sings at the same time while playing the drums like that.
Yeah.
The whole package is absolutely notable as a band. And they're probably, I think I'm going to speak for you. I think they're on the list of bands that should absolutely be way bigger and more famous than they are, because it's approachable music. It's beautiful. It's heavy. It's not too heavy. There's no reason why this band isn't headlining most of the heavy festivals. I think about what's the band fronted by Taylor Momsen?
The rock something,
the Petty Reckless, or the something Reckless.
Pretty Reckless. That's what it is. It's the Pretty Reckless.
They're good, and I've seen them on the main stage at all these festivals, but I think Brutus is better.
Oh yeah.
Not to rank bands or whatever, but
no, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I would agree with that take for sure.
And Taylor Momsen, she played Cindy Lou Who in the film adaptation of The Grinch Stole Christmas.
She was also on that TV show. Was it Pretty Little Liars or something? Or was that the one? Or she was on a TV show.
Jenny Humphrey in Gossip Girl.
Gossip Girl. That's the one. Gossip Girl. Yeah. So, but yeah, Brutus did finally play.
Not to pick on them, by the way.
Yeah.
Not to pick on them, and not to pick on them because they're another band with a female singer.
Sure.
But like, they deserve the spots they're getting. I just think Brutus deserves to be right there with them.
Yeah, Brutus did play Sonic Temple last year, but not this year. but last year they did finally play Sonic Temple. But they were
But
like
they always play in the daytime.
They were in the daytime. One of those ones that you almost need a magnifying glass, or if you're looking on your phone, you got to zoom in to see the band names at the bottom of the billing. You know,
at our age, we're soon going to need readers
yes,
to
exactly, to see those
that
bands.
level of the concert.
Yeah. I don't get it. Their last album was, I think maybe, was that your number one album of the year? It was. I remember it was.
I think so.
It was way up there.
Up
it was top 5 for me. You know, and then the previous album was way up there for me. I mean, this is not just a novelty thing. This is just a really great rock band that I have to assume in part is just because of being European, and they're not big. They've like never been able to really be big enough to sustainably tour. They all have jobs that they, so they all have something that ties them to Belgium that they have to be there for. Their regular their day jobs, if you will. And I think that's probably partially prevented them from really being able to break through here in America. But I often think, like, if MTV was still what it was when we were kids, if Brutus could have made a music video, they would have been huge in America. I really believe that if people would have seen what the energy of this band and what they're all about, I think, and like just, Stephanie's charisma in the live shows, seeing her play the drums and sing, and she's not in the back of the stage the way if you're visualizing this in your head. The drums are not in the middle, in the back of the stage. She's right up front on the right side of the stage, usually. Well, as you're looking at it, whether that's stage right or stage left, but as you're looking at it on the right, and then the drums are like,
hey, we weren't theater kids, okay?
That's right. That's right. Clearly. But and the drums are sideways, so she's playing, not, the drums are not being played out to the crowd, they're being played towards the band, and then she's able
that when
to
she looks left
to sing,
she's facing the crowd while she's singing.
It's brilliant. It's a way to personalize that, to be able to sing and connect with the audience in a way that if she was in the back of the stage, she wouldn't be able to. And so I do think in a different world and different circumstances, I do think that they would have had, I mean, would they be the biggest band in the world? No, of course not. But I think they would have had sustainable success if they could have had, like, if music videos mattered and people could have seen what this band was all about.
All right, I have one more live record that I absolutely have to talk about, and then we can finish off wherever you want to go.
Okay.
I am a very big Sheryl Crow fan, and it's a record that I have never owned. I've never been able to find it, and when it finally got released on streaming, I was very happy. Live from Central Park, Sheryl Crow and Friends. She brings in some of the most famous people in the world to do songs with her, and some covers. She's got Eric Clapton on this album. She's got Sarah McLachlan. She's got Stevie Nicks. But the two Sheryl Crow songs that these became the definitive versions of those songs. She did Strong Enough with the group that was at the time known as the Dixie Chicks. Now they're called the Chicks.
Yep.
It's like an unbelievable harmony, just an incredible version of that song. And then maybe one of my top favorite songs of all time, and the top versions of my favorite songs of all time, she does If It Makes You Happy with Chrissie Hynde from the Pretenders. And Chrissie Hynde, with her deep, sultry vocal, sings like a low note, and Sheryl Crow sings her high part. And the harmonies that they hit on the chorus make that the best version of that song I've ever heard in my entire life. So if I'm going to put that song on a mix, I tend to use that version. Nice. On my Spotify playlist. And that's just one of the greatest live records, and carrying on a great tradition, by the way, live from Central Park, because I remember my dad specifically listening to, and it was a PBS special, Simon and Garfunkel live from Central Park.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people would consider that to be kind of one of the definitive albums or live performances
Is
of all
that
time.
where the Garth Brooks live album was? That Central Park too?
Oh, No Fences Live. Is that what that was?
Maybe. I remember that being absolutely massive when that came out, that live album. But
I totally forgot about that.
I don't remember if that
Garth Brooks
was
double live.
it was at Central Park. I think it was New York City. Because it was an
It was
absolutely
1998.
massive show. I don't
Huh?
remember.
It it broke the first week sales record previously held by Versus.
Yeah.
It sold 1.085 million
So there
copies
we
in the
go.
first week.
It was absolutely massive.
I'm trying to figure out where it was recorded.
Well, maybe it was just a collection from across the tour, but I thought for some reason it was I thought it was from New York City somewhere, because I feel like I remember seeing videos of that tour or of that specific show, but I don't know.
It's a 2-disc compilation of live songs recorded during his 96 to 98 world tour. He had a world tour that spanned 96 to 98.
It's so easy to forget how huge Garth Brooks was. He was every bit as huge as Taylor Swift is today.
Yes.
And we just forget about him, like, which is just, it's kind of crazy to think about. Like,
it has been certified 23 times platinum.
Good Lord. Like, that should have been the first, when we talked about like impact at live albums, like that should have been the thing we talk about, but he's so far out of sight, out of mind that we didn't think of it till this late in the show.
Yeah.
You know, another one I'd be remiss if we didn't at least mention would be The Who.
And by the way, it's the best selling live album of all time, but it unseated Eric Clapton's Unplugged.
Yeah. Which we talked about on the Unplugged episode, was absolutely ubiquitous as well. You know, we should definitely at least mention The Who live at Leeds. This is one of the most iconic live albums ever. This is also a used CD store special. Like, I promise you, if you go to a used CD store, you're going to find a copy of The Who's live at Leeds. And I think it's because they released so many different versions of it that like people just kept upgrading and getting the newest version of it and then selling the old version. You know, The Who are not my favorite band, but I
like their top 10 songs.
Yeah.
I don't go deep with The Who.
I saw them live.
Wow.
While John Entwistle was still alive, which was awesome. That was a great show. PJ Harvey opened, and she was phenomenal.
That's
as
crazy.
Well. But yeah. So I mean, I like The Who, but they're not like my absolute favorite band. But Live at Leeds is definitely a really great spot if somebody wants to just figure out what The Who was all about, and if you want to hear Keith Moon just be absolutely insane on the drums, you could do that one.
Which makes me also think, I think there are two more that we have to mention just so people don't get mad at us. Although we don't get mad. Just tell us about the ones that we missed, because I'm sure we missed plenty. And again, this is a little bit kind of before us. We were born when this one was released, but I think we were 4. U2, Under a Blood Red Sky from Red Rocks.
Yep, that one's
another Red Rocks record.
Yep.
The visuals from that show.
I say that's a DVD as well, and it's awesome.
A VHS, you mean?
Oh yeah. It was on tape.
And then you mentioned drumming. Rush did a fair amount of live records and really displayed their talents as a live band.
Sure.
I was never a huge Rush fan, but man, did I appreciate them or respect them. There's a documentary, I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but a documentary just kind of about Rush and all the making of that band, or not the making of that band, but you know what I mean. And you won't be disappointed, even if you don't love their music. They're just a fascinating group.
Right now, all of my friends who know me well are laughing, going, all right, here it comes. I have some spitting hot takes about Rush. I do not like Rush at all. I can't stand them. and it's
They're a divisive
all
band.
because I hate Geddy Lee's vocals. I hate his vocals.
Yeah.
I hate his lyrics just as much. I hate the vocal melodies that he writes.
By the way, the lyrics were written by the drummer.
Okay, fair. Well, then Neil Peart,
whatever.
So
rest in peace.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a Rush fan. I can't say that I'm familiar with that live album, but I will say I do respect the musicality of that band. I mean, there's no question about that. Musically, I like a lot of the stuff from them that I've heard. It was just as soon as Geddy would start singing, my ears would bleed, and I'd just be like, "Oh, this is not for me." But if it is for you, I'm happy for you. So,
I like Rush's top 5 songs. I
like Tom Sawyer.
I
think Tom Sawyer is cool.
So I appreciate their top 5 songs. I saw them live because Primus opened up and I wanted to see Primus.
Mm-hmm.
And Rush fans hated Primus, by the way.
Okay.
Which is fine, but I got to see My Name is Mud live for the first time.
Yeah.
So it was worth it to me. And we left right after the drum solo from Neil Peart, because we didn't care about the second half of Rush's set. But like, I don't even blame you for disliking them, but you know, it's one of those bands that even you who doesn't like them, the respect has to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like, a lot of my things are just, you know, when you're talking with friends, you always exaggerate your point of view anyway. So I think I always probably came across as more anti-Rush than I really am. It's just not my thing.
Well, it's like once I got to be known as the person who hated Jimmy Buffett, I leaned way in.
Yeah.
And I don't hate Jimmy Buffett as much as I say I do. I dislike him.
But there's less to respect with Jimmy Buffett than there is with Rush. Like,
but he was the king of the live record.
Yeah, that is true. We don't have to get into it, but I was going to ask if you feel bad now, like that we're speaking ill of the dead with Jimmy Buffett now, but
or Rush for that matter, Neil Peart.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. So
no, because it's never personal.
Yeah. One last thing I wanted to just kind of mention is the fact that, you know, the core grunge bands all had really good live albums. Soundgarden's kind of came later, but Live on I-5 is a really good live album. They've since done another live one that was from their later era, and the name of it's going to escape me now, but it was quite good. But then Alice in Chains, their live album, which is just called Live, really good. You get to kind of hear you know, some of the final years of Lane's live performances, as well as some early years. They've got some older cuts in there as well. Nirvana had From the Muddy Banks of the Wishkah, you know, obviously unplugged, but Wishkah is a really good live album. And then they also did Live at Reading as well. Their famous Reading festival performance, the one where Kurt came out in a wheelchair after being hospitalized, you know, kind of playing into it, you know. And again, this is the band that Dave Grohl was the drummer for. We talk about them not taking things too seriously. So Kurt was hospitalized, presumably for an overdose, and then came out and made fun of it by coming out
in a heroin coma.
Yeah. And then he comes out in stage in a wheelchair in the hospital gown, and, you know, it gets frail. He gets up, you know, to poke fun at it. And it's an iconic live performance, and it's a really great live album too. So,
well, as always, we live for the feedback. We're not precious about the stuff that we got wrong. Let us know. You know, we do get things wrong. We're doing this thing off the cuff from our memories. I do look things up and read stats to you, but and most importantly, like, we want to fill the gaps. If we've got gaps in our knowledge and we're missing a really iconic live record, we're not going to be sad if you point it out. We're going to go listen to it. Yeah. We're going to be really happy. We're very grateful for the audience that continues to build on YouTube and also on the podcast. the best thing you can do is subscribe to this channel, tell a friend, do all those kinds of things.
Smash
like
that
and subscribe.
smash that like button.
I know. God, we're so old. We're so old. It's fine. All right. Well, thanks so much for listening, everybody. It was great to run down all these live records, and we look forward to talking to you next time. It's been the Album of Record podcast.